With the upcoming ban list, I think it's time to speculate about the possibilities.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, it's that time of the year again, and we're starting to speculate about the upcoming ban list that has just been announced by Bushiroad. However, originally I wasn't planning to make this video, and yeah, I know I was blatantly called out by W Slasher, but the actual reason why I made this video is because of a video uploaded by Soul Kage explaining that the fact that we get another ban list this year is very unprecedented. As he stated in his video, and I highly recommend you guys to check out this channel and to see all his new content that he's starting to upload to his channel, as he is one of the OG players that started playing back at the very beginning. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, he's probably the man with the information. But basically what he explained about is that ever since Bushiroad started doing restriction lists, it was twice a year. Every time after a season ends, a restriction list would be announced and would be made, and that would be after Worlds or after Springfest. So we've always got one in the summer and one in the winter between the two seasons. However, this year we've got now the third ban list. We already got one in January, we already got one two months ago, but now we've got a third one right in the middle of the World Championship season, as the shop challenge already started and we're starting to make headways towards the regional tournaments. And this ban list would probably be in effect right before the first regionals that happen in Asia or in Japan. So this is pretty unprecedented, and like a lot of people, myself included, we thought, this is gonna be a no changes ban list whatsoever. But because of this, and because he made that video and explained this, I'm now thinking there is gonna be a definite change. There's gonna be something banned, as there must be a reason for them to make this somewhat emergency ban list right in the middle of a season that's never happened before for Vanguard. So because of that video, this video is happening today. So as I explained, check out Soul Kage. He's probably gonna upload more videos in the future. I'm not sure what's gonna happen on his channel, but he is a guy from the OG days and he knows his stuff. He's also one of the guys responsible for the wiki page. So if you're using the wiki for Cardfight Vanguard, then go to his page, say hello, pay your respects to him, because he's a very awesome guy for the community in general. So back on to the topic of today's video, speculations for the ban list or restriction list for Vanguard. That's happening in about 2 days of making this video. So we've got standard and we've got premium. So let's talk about standard first, as that's my forte, and then dive into premium with the limited knowledge that I have for that format. So the only information that we have is basically the results of the previous tournaments that Bushiroad has been releasing, as well as what they announced in the previous ban list with the no update ban list, is that they had a watch list for both formats. So when we take a look at standard, we know they're looking out at for Oracle Think Tank, Angel Feathers, Kagero, and Bermuda Triangle. And if we take a look at their latest tournament results, we see this flowchart, and we basically see that the format is pretty diverse. We have Bermuda Triangle, Narukami, Royal Paladin, Link Joker, and Oracle Think Tank, making about 52% of the entire tournament, and then the other 48% is divided about a plethora of different clans. So as it stands, it's a pretty healthy diversity in my personal opinion, but as we see, Bermuda Triangle is still reigning supreme with the most percentage as 12.5%. So with that, we can already assume with the 4 clans that they have on a watch list, Angel Feathers basically fall off. We can write that one off. Oracle Think Tank isn't really in a very good position right now. It's still solid, but nowhere near to make it a ban or to restrict something. So we can already write that off. Kagero, exact same. It's falling out of favor right now. It's still a very solid deck for the great and the end, and probably more the great. But even that, it's not something to say there has to be a restriction on that. However, Bermuda Triangle is still a very solid deck in the format. Still, it's one of the 2 beat decks in the format. So I do think if there's going to be a restriction for standard in this emergency ban list, and it can also be that it's only for premium, but if it's for standard, I am highly likely to believe that it's gonna be on Bermuda Triangle. Either they're gonna limit the early game from Bermuda Triangle, or they're gonna affect their end game and final play capabilities. So they can say, we're gonna restrict Liselot to maybe a 1-off or a 2-off in Bermuda Triangle in general, because we have to kind of take in fact that Bermuda Triangle is going to get support in a couple of months. It's not a yearly support anymore. So Liselot can become an issue for any type of deck, as it's splashable in anything. When we take a look at Melody, the other restriction that they can come up with, they can limit the amounts of Carol and Sonata you can play in a single deck. So what they can do is maybe say you can only run 1 copy of one and 3 copies of the other, so a total of 4 maybe, or just say you cannot run the other if you run already one of those 2. They have a couple of options to limit those 2 cards, as those 2 cards together are basically making Bermuda Triangle insanely strong. To have grade 3 boosters as well as all the additional power gain on top of that makes them pretty insane. And that's basically everything for standard. Then we go into premium. As we know, for premium they only had Bermuda Triangle on the watch list, and that's pretty obvious, as Bermuda has been reigning supreme ever since the reboot, even before they got their first support in V-triggers at basically the end of the first cycle. And behold and behold, after their first support set, it's still pretty damn solid. And as we see in the latest result of the big tournament, we see the following diversity. And we have the top 3 clans that are Gold Paladin, Bermuda Triangle, and Shadow Paladin. And right behind them, we have Nubatama. And then we got a couple of other clans that are pretty familiar, like Neo Nectar, that are still pretty solid and viable in the format. So what's gonna be hit in it for premium? Well, I only have restrictions for 3 clans out of probably 4, 5, 6 clans that a lot of people are thinking of. The clans that I think that should have a restriction are Gold Paladin, Oracle Think Tank, and Bermuda Triangle. And let me talk, while I don't think that Shadow Paladin, Nubatama, and Neo Nectar needs a hit, is Shadow Paladin and Neo Nectar have basically are in both position for me. I don't really have that much knowledge and experience with the format, so I didn't really play against those 2 decks. But what I find about these decks when I see them in action is that they have a solid early game and they have a solid end game, but they do have some issues with consistency and maybe the how fast they are. Shadow Paladin has some issues with how fast it is, and it can fall short against decks like Gold Paladin that are way faster, and even against Neo Nectar that has a better early game than they do. So it does have some issues. Neo Nectar, on the other hand, is just a really dumb deck. There's no way to go around it. It's really a dumb deck. However, it does have some issues with when they do not write the correct grade 3, because they usually want to go into Maiden of Two Rows, and some decks only run that as a grade 3, so that might have some issues with consistency as well. And when they are up against a good defensive deck, they might fall down in the late game as they burn through their tools and their cards way too fast. So they do have a weakness against a good solid wall deck. Then we have Nubatama, and this is one of the more controversial topics. A lot of people want to have that clan hit very hard because of the insane combination that you have with Dominate and with the new Jamiya Kungo as well as Kokoshi Garas. The reason why I don't think it should be hit right now is that it's a very good anti-meta deck that keeps the big boys in check. It is a very good deck against other decks that revolve around big hands like Oracle Think Tank, Bermuda Triangle, and Shadow Paladin. If that deck falls out, then those 3 decks don't really have another deck in the format that keeps them in check, because they have a big wall and other decks cannot really ram through those numbers and then also keep defending again against their insane onslaught. Jamiya Kungo and Dominate basically states you only have 4 cards and you need to try to play the game with only those 4 cards. So yes, the deck can be very dangerous, and I think it should be on a watch list because they're going to get support very soon. Then it might become really broken, but as it is now, I think it's a necessary evil to keep other decks in check in the format. Now, for the decks that I think that should be hit, we have Gold Paladin. There is an obvious hit that this deck needs, and it's around the Superior Right Chain with Ezel. And a lot of people are talking about banning Kriff as a starter. I do think that, just like W Slasher pointed in his video, Bowmains is the real problem. I think Bowmains either need to be limited to 1 or 2 copies, Or what I personally think is a lot better is just outright ban the card to be played with the old starter. So if you play the old Crypt starter, you may not play the V-Series Bowmains. I think that is a better restriction to make the deck a lot more fair and a lot more controlled in what they want to do with the clan, and then they are free to make some more strong support cards for Ezel that will not outright break premium. As for Bermuda Triangle, there are a lot of things they can do. They can take the same lethal lot restriction that I had for standard, maybe only 1 or 2 copies per deck, because that card is played in premium as well for the more early game aggression. But for the rest, there are a lot of things that you can talk about. And I think, just like W Slasher, the most annoying appointed card out is their G-Guard Ellie that has to be restricted to 1 copy, as it just circumvents all those nasty things like Ichikishima that a lot of other clans need to deal with, yet Bermuda Triangle can just walk past it and have no problem. And with 2 copies, they can just flip it over and flip it back and use it again. It needs to go to 1 copy. It also limits the power potential of the G-Guard. But besides that, I think Bermuda Triangle has a lot of other defensive options, and it's just ridiculous how good they can stall with all these high defensive cards. As for Oracle Think Tank, there has to be something to limit the Ichikishima cards. These cards are pretty insane. We already had the Ichikishima Tom combo in the past. It was really slow in that regard, so we didn't really see that much in premium in the early stages. But now, with the second Ichikishima, they basically empowered the deck to insane numbers. That deck is pretty insane. It can halter any type of defensive plays. It blocks out G-Guardians, it blocks out Perfect Guards, unless you have a special defensive card that works on the continuous ability like Ellie, then there isn't really that much you can do. However, there are some play arounds and you can play against it, but with a card like the V-Series Silent Tom and also the aggressive tools that we got now with the new support cards with Battle Sisters and all that kinds of stuff, this deck can be a real problem. However, I'm not sure what you should hit for this deck, as I haven't really played against it that all too much, but I think it should be looked at and there should be something restricted to make it less deadly as this. However, with the result that Bushiroad shown, we see that Oracle Think Tank isn't really on that high rise, just like Neo Nectar, but as we see in the West, those decks are considered top meta picks. And I think a lot of people are referring Oracle Think Tank as the deck in premium right now. And it depends on who you're asking. It can also still be Bermuda Triangle, or some people are thinking that Shadow Paladin are the top deck. But I honestly think that Oracle Think Tank, Neo Nectar are one of the more deadly decks out there. However, it's hard to decide what should be hit, as a lot of things work good together. But it might just happen that Bushiroad does something about those clans. I'm not sure what they're gonna do, but as for my personal picks for premium, it's either gonna be the V-Series Bowmains is gonna be restricted, maybe the LAG guard for Bermuda Triangle, and something is gonna be done about Oracle Think Tank because they're just denying your opponent to play the game in any type of way with all those restrictions with the both Ichikishima strides that they have. And that's about everything for the speculations I have for the upcoming ban list. As I stated at the beginning of the video, I'm not really that specialized in premium, as I haven't really played that format as much as I do with standard. I am starting to get into that format a little bit more in the coming days as we're progressing into the new championship circuit for standard and premium, but it will take a while before I'm as knowledgeable in that format as I do with standard. So that's why the restriction options aren't really that fleshed out as I had with standard, because I haven't really played against a lot of those decks very often, like Neo Nectar and Shadow Paladin. I haven't really seen those decks all that much in actions with first-hand experience. So that's why I'm not sure if it should be hit, what should be hit, and what shouldn't be hit, because there are also things that they shouldn't touch because it can outright just kill the deck or have some negative consequences on the meta, because just like I've stated with Nubatama, it might be an annoying deck, but if they hit that, then big wall decks that are also very aggressive might have free reign. And that's also not something that you want to do, because you need certain decks that keeps other decks in check. As in premium, it's a very delicate balance right now. In standard, not so much, as Bermuda Triangle is still the top dog, and there isn't really anything that keeps that in check. So there has to be done something to make it a more even playing field in standard as well as in premium. But with that, I now pass the question on to you. What are your suggestions for the upcoming ban list? What do you think should be hit, or what do you think Bushroad is gonna be hit? Because those are two different things. Because everyone has his own opinion and his own wish, but what is gonna be hit? That's the real questions. What is gonna be hit on Tuesday, and what is gonna be discussed on this channel in a couple of days? So let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, and let the discussion go. As always, I want to thank my supporters over at Patreon for making this video possible. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel and everything that's happening on the channel, then head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.